Adventures in Research. In a land where peace is prized, what is more reassuring than the man in uniform, be it the policeman or the soldier? And one of the most important pieces of equipment either one uses was once yesterday's secret weapon. This is Paul Shannon bringing you another transcribed story of science produced as a public service in cooperation with the Westinghouse Research Laboratories. And today telling you of yesterday's secret weapon. As far back as one can dip into the history of nations, they have had a common aim. The ancient Greek ruler Dionysius, in the year 430 B.C., expressed it this way.
We must needs invent a weapon for protection, whereby the power of one man can be increased beyond the capacity of his ordinary arm.
And so Dionysius invented a weapon which he called Polybolus, a weapon which projected a succession of arrows supplied by a magazine or hopper. In the years to follow Dionysius, this purpose remained the same, to increase the power of the individual. At the Battle of Hastings, some of the English archers used bows which fired 2 or more arrows simultaneously. And with the invention of gunpowder, an idea was born in the mind of a German monk named Bernard Schwartz.
I cannot banish from my mind, Franz, the writings of the Englishman Bacon.
I have seen you reading what he has written, and you have wrinkled your brow as one who is deep in thought.
I have been, for as I read of this gunpowder that the Englishman writes of, strange visions scurried through my mind.
Visions?
Yes, of iron tubes for men who now carry bows. No longer will they carry those bows, but instead long iron tubes with strange arrows padded to fit into this tube.
Oh, strange thoughts you think, Bernard.
And in this tube is this gunpowder of which Bacon has written. The gunpowder packed in the tube discharges the arrows.
And the arrows are propelled through space?
It is a haunting vision. For Bacon's writings have seriously aroused me. For if I can see such strange devices, what will the mind of man invent that is even more strange, more awesome?
It was not long before such a device was invented. The French had a name for it, orgue, which is to say organ, and it did resemble a pipe organ, with its 6 to 10 barrels mounted side by side on a frame. They were fired by a single lock, firing a quick match, which ignited the charge of all barrels in rapid succession. These weapons the French called not only orgue, but also rebol de can, which means, of all things, little bit of laughter. But from medieval France, our picture changes to America, which in the year 1862 was in the throes of a civil war. And to the War Department, Dr. Richard J. Gatling of Chicago, an inventor by trade, paid an important call.
But, Dr. Gatling, the machine gun is nothing new or novel.
I realize that, sir, but...
And all of them have had one thing in common. Yes, every machine gun that you inventors have tracked to my office all had one thing in common.
But my idea is a radical change.
All the same, Doctor. None of them work.
If you will but listen, General, I'm sure I can explain the theory of my gun to you.
Oh, in theory, it undoubtedly is perfect, but in action...
Let me explain. The gun consists of 6 barrels, fixed in a circular form around a central axis. Behind the 6 barrels is the loading mechanism. The cartridges are fed into the top barrel by a trough at the top of the mechanism. As the gun is fired, the cartridges fall into the top gun of their own weight. Then, as the operator turns the handle, the entire axis revolves. While the gun at the top is being loaded, the gun at the bottom is being fired, and ejects the empty cartridge as it moves up to the top, and so on.
And when the gun explodes from the heat...
No, sir. The entire gun is covered by a water jacket which cools the barrel.
Excuse me, Doctor, but though I'm certain your gun would undoubtedly show a great amount of effort and inventiveness, we're in the middle of a war. And we have no time to spend in searching out new gadgets.
I realize that, sir, but if I can't convince the War Department officially, would there be any objection to my using your soldiers to demonstrate just what this weapon can do?
Well, Dr. Gatling, such demonstrations, all unofficial, of course, might be most agreeable to the War Department.
Of course, unofficial.
Yes.
One of my employees could operate the gun in action, showing the men in the field just how this machine gun operates in action.
Man, oh, man. Won't that give him to him, Bo?
Oh, I never thought I'd see anything like that. Boy, if we had 2 more of them things, well, they could send most of us home.
Ain't that so? I never saw any gun like that one. Why, this Gatling feller...
Man, don't you know? That there's no gun. It's a gas.
The newspapers in the North carried no details about the Gatling gun. In fact, it was merely referred to as the unofficial secret weapon. Thus, the Gatling gun's reputation never crossed the Atlantic. Europe was concentrating on problems of its own, the Franco-Prussian War. And newspaper correspondents there began hinting of a dark secret, too.
It is reliably reported that the mighty army of Napoleon III has a secret weapon which will disperse the ranks of the Prussians. Although only a few soldiers have been permitted to see it, it is reported that it is the discovery of a Belgian officer who some 20 years ago invented this new and fearsome device.
Never was a secret kept so dark and so hidden. False rumors were planted to confuse any Prussian eavesdroppers. For indeed, the secret weapon of France was a machine gun, invented quite independently of Dr. Gatling's. On Mobilization Day in July 1870, the French moved their new guns to the front, wrapped in tarpaulins and heavily guarded by armed soldiers. It was quite a secret, although some newspapers had uncovered the story and hastily revealed it to their readers.
The mighty secret weapon of the French army is a gun that fires 12 times per minute. The device weighs 1,800 kilograms and loads 2,100 cartridges. The gun itself is used in artillery fashion to supplement the long siege guns, invented in 1859 by a...
But actually, this did not give the secret away. For the French, in an absent-minded moment, had shown the Prussian staff officers just how it worked during maneuvers some years previous. But that was not the only mistake the French generals had made. Their almost fatal error was in classifying the machine gun as artillery, and the Prussian generals could well remark.
The range of their weapon is limited to that of the Chesapeake rifle, such as French infantry uses. A range of, 1,000 yards, perhaps a little more. So their secret weapon gives us a target that is even more attractive than their field gun, even more. For our guns cannot range it, and their little secret weapon cannot reply. A secret weapon.
But the French newspapers continued their enthusiasm.
The mighty, wonderful weapon is a tremendous advance in France's military history. The great secret weapon of the Emperor's army will bring a speedy victory over the Prussian force.
But as the Prussian armies made further and further inroads, the fate of the machine gun, the wonder weapon, seemed well marked, even to the French.
The weapon is more of a liability than an asset. It is stupid to believe that an infantry rifle, even if mounted on wheels in series, can perform the task of artillery.
The High Command of the Prussian army has proved that the machine gun as an armed weapon is a failure, bringing complete discredit on those responsible for its use. The machine gun is not an effective instrument of war.
And so Prussia and France, two of the greater powers, believed that the machine gun was a complete failure. Nevertheless, Queen Victoria's England became curious about the wonder weapon with the tremendous firepower.
After extensive tests before the House of Commons, the War Office believes that this is a superior weapon. Although many years have elapsed since the American Gatling invented the machine gun, no one has yet improved upon it, nor have we seen a single performance of any machine that matches it.
In 1882, however, came a new name and a new chapter in the history of the machine gun. The name, Hiram Maxim.
In 1881, I visited an electrical exhibition in Paris and was made a Chevalier of the Legion of Honor on account of some electrical and chemical work that I had done. Well, a while later, I came upon an American I had known in the States.
Well, Maxim, Hiram, good to see you again.
Well, hello. I haven't seen you in years.
Yeah, been a long time. But I've been keeping up with you in the papers.
Oh?
Yeah, I saw you mentioned about a year ago. I said to my wife, hey, old Hiram's been decorated by the French and kissed on the cheek for his work in electricity and chemistry.
Yes, but, you can't live on
Yes, I know. Lots of honor, but no money, huh? Well, you listen to me. If you want to make a pile of money, invent something you can pick up in your hands and say, I invented this. Something you can put a patent on. Well, something like a stove or a chair or, well, at these times, like a gun.
Well, that made me think of the time when I was only about 14 years old. I was making drawings for my father of a hand-worked machine gun. I also thought of the powerful kick I got the first time I fired a United States military rifle. So, on my way from Paris, I made a drawing of an automatic rifle. Within a few weeks, I had set up residence in London and started an experimental shop at 570 Hatton Garden.
Although Maxim's first thoughts were of a repeating rifle to be fired from the shoulder, he soon evolved the machine gun to fire from a tripod, and he worked with tremendous energy and speed.
Patent 3493, registered July 16, 1883, being an invention of improvements on machine or battery guns and in cartridges for the same and other firearms. Patent 6063, January 3, 1884. Patent 7844, February 23rd. Patent 9407, May 23rd.
What made Maxim's machine gun so revolutionary was its many automatic features. Maxim produced a self-loading and self-ejecting single-barrel gun. The principle was simple. The gun barrel, after firing, recoiled in its mountings. This pulled a string, which snapped the barrel back into firing position again. The movement backwards and forwards operated the mechanism, which, having fired the bullet, ejected the empty cartridge and loaded another in its place in the chamber. The cartridges were held in clips in a belt, which the action of the gun moved through the feed block from right to left. The result? A Maxim machine gun, the basis for all such rapid-fire weapons now in use. And while it is best known as a weapon of death and destruction, still it is an essential instrument in the hands of those who would maintain law and order and peace in a troubled world. Part of the good and evil that came from Richard Gatling's and Hiram Maxim's adventure in research. And that's today's Adventures in Research, produced in cooperation with the Westinghouse Research Laboratories. These programs are broadcast to Armed Forces personnel overseas through the facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Join us again next week for another transcribed story of science on Adventures in Research.